I just heard something on the Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Portnoy that kind of bumped up against some stuff going on in my real life. And it made me want to comment about manhood, uh, football, and where we're at in our culture now and how it affects these things. What they were discussing was the whole concussion issue in football. I don't want to go over the whole, like, Tom Brady says it's 1,000 times, but is he talking about a real concussion, just talking about getting your bell rung? Obviously there's like big time long-term effects for people that have traumatic brain injuries and such. But the premise that came out of the conversation was that the NFL doesn't want to admit that people have concussions playing football, where you guys clip right at each other. It used to be more of a sport. I think you used to not have all those pads, helmet, and it was actually like a game of skill. And they actually didn't pick as large of guys, and the game wasn't about like slamming into each other. But I mostly just based that on what my grandpa used to say about how he couldn't stand sports. I honestly didn't watch a lot of old games, and I honestly didn't watch many over my lifetime. These guys could sue for concussion, or they've sued for the fact that they had a concussion while they're working. And Joe Rogan's talking about you get a concussion in the MMA, but that's an expectation. You BMX bike and you flip the bike over, and if you mess up and you bust your head, that's an expectation. But then he said that he didn't think that that was an expectation playing football. Let me tell you that football really should be the United States of America's most aggressive and physical sport. It hasn't interested me since a child because it's not that. The minute that I saw them in pads when I was a 7th grader, 6th grader, out there playing full tackle with the 8th graders, just like all the rest of the kids, and we had fun, and sometimes people got hurt. We all knew that the expectation was that we would get hurt, and it was fun because we were boys. And I might add, there was a couple of females that played with us too that were real tough. But we weren't abusing each other. Nobody was like a victim of the situation. We were playing, and it wasn't any fun unless there was an actual risk. I don't think that our current culture understands what a risk is. Their movies have multiverses where someone can just come back or something turns out different. So anywhere, somewhere, the thing that should have happened is happening, and everything's happening everywhere. So don't worry, everything's fine. And the hero is always kind of like larger than life, and he's saving other people. It's not really the same as, like, if you think about being trapped in a situation and there isn't anyone coming to get you, which actually was the premise. Me growing up, like, everybody knows Die Hard, our favorite holiday movie now or whatever. They really were about being isolated. They really were about not having a chance. The hero's journey began with being defeated somehow, and I see that that's really missing. I'm seeing a lot of guys with situations like mine where they don't have an influence, like, even if they're there for their kid and they haven't been labeled toxic or run out of their house or had to start a new life because they were accused of something that was normal and has always been normal, which is being male. He grew up watching Married with Children, and Al Bundy always had a joke that was sexist. And before he came along, there were many others, and there were comedians we were laughing at well into 2000 that, we made sexist jokes. There was race in our jokes. It was funny. People of those sexes and races in the audience would laugh. And when somebody got upset, that made the set even better because we were all dying. That could push somebody into being a star. Just faking it. Just put somebody in the audience. Pretend like they're upset. Because, I don't know, I don't think it was isolated to Arizona or Tucson or something. I thought that this was American culture, but even beyond that, I think it's man culture, like worldly. I think primally, we would not have survived as a species if men were afraid of pain and didn't kind of seek challenges, and especially didn't have the ability to endure defeats. So we come back to football. Football players are perceived as, nothing against you guys, okay? But they are perceived now, and we're not talking about some ladies chatting or someone like me who is a critic that doesn't even like football. We're talking about the mainstream opinion. The biggest guys, right? They're fragile now. A boxer would go in, he knew he'd get punch drunk. He knew at the end of his career that he might not be okay. They had seen the other boxers, old boxers, couldn't talk anymore. We know of some. I don't want to put them on blast because I have respect, but we all know. Some can't talk no more. They can't do what they used to do. They were doing what they loved, and they pursued it, and they lived a good life, whether they won or lost. And that was the price they paid. And that's what we're seeing now that's missing. We're afraid of things, and we want someone else to protect us. And I'll include myself in that, because at the beginning of, the things that we're not supposed to talk about, but I think now we can talk about, but it doesn't matter. It depends on who you are, I was afraid too, but not for as long as 15 days or whatever. It was just a few days. But I was where it was supposed to be its worst. And I was taking jobs from people that were just suddenly getting totally sick somewhere, and they had to go to the hospital, and they had to spend 2 weeks off. So I had a lot of opportunity to cover a lot of posts, and I kept getting sent to the ones that were wherever the news said it was a hot spot or whatever kind of bullshit. But you see, I'm a man. Ladies, if you want to be equal to a man, and some of you are superior to what passes for a man now, no doubt. You don't hide and wait for somebody else to come save you, do you? You won't survive that way if anything ever happens that pushes you outside of your comfort zone. And if you're going to treat it like abuse for a coach to discipline a child playing on his team, or even an adult player to think that they can sue when they're getting paid so much money. Dave on the show commented and said, he wouldn't go for it anymore because apparently he's wealthy from something. But 99% of us, so he's saying not that top 1% that we've talked about, or they talked about, or I used to talk about. Things have changed a lot. But we used to know that it was only that top 1%. Not white males or black white supremacists or whatever kind of idiotic crap they're feeding our young men. See, now I just lost my entire train of thought because it makes me so angry. Because men know that these things will happen. Men know that. They do. And they're wired for it, right? Like, even if you never train for it, your genetics tell you you're going to be out there in the heat or the cold. You're going to be, getting the cuts and the stings and the bites. And that's what you're wired to do when you're hunting and gathering and fighting for resources and mining. And that's why we were the labor force. Not because it's a privilege, but because the way that we're designed, that is enjoyable. We enjoy it if we're good at it, and we choose the role that we're good at. We adapt to it, and we really enjoy the challenge, and we really enjoy being able to have a sense of worth, in ourselves. And I don't know what you do when people start calling that narcissism, and when you try to push people to do those things, it's called abusive or bullying. It's so bad that we can't even tell a joke anymore. You can't wear the right kind of clothes unless they're the specific type of clothes that your particular subclass wears, be it ethnic or cultural or based on your beliefs. So the idea is that if I put on a yarmulke, I'm somehow insulting Jewish people because I'm not really Jewish. Well, I have the capacity for one, right? But you can't even make a joke like that or make a statement like that without people saying that you're somehow like a Holocaust denier or that you have some kind of problem. You can't even self-deprecate sometimes. So you can be that black man telling a joke about how black people are perceived to be. The whole audience laughs, but then, the internet cancels him. Well, I just hope you guys realize that 80% of Twitter turned out to be bots. So you're getting canceled by one person and an army of stupid robots that they either paid or just don't know. It's an algorithm-based thing to jump on their team and push it. People are making policies and decisions based on this bullshit. And you know what? That's really the biggest difference. I'm sorry, ladies, but you get pissed off because a guy can just sit there and stare in the fire. Sit there and stare in the fire. While what's another thing that is horrible and toxic? Like maybe smoke a cigar or have a drink. Yeah, those only lead to you being an even more horrible man. Because those can hurt you, they're bad, and you're encouraging other people to hurt yourself. But that's not what's pissing you off. What's pissing you off is that I can be satisfied just doing that. Nothing else. And if something happens, I am paying attention. In fact, I'm more aware in this state. Now, that's because I'm not set up to be at home taking care of people and interacting with other people and trading and figuring out what needs to be taken care of. That is literally where a woman has so much more competence. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't still guys that can be interior designers and manage a preschool or a cafeteria. Obviously, there's guys that really excel at that, and there's women that are cut above them in their own career fields. So I want to say right now, I am a chauvinist pig, but I don't want you to get confused when I'm talking and think that that's what I'm expressing right now. What I'm expressing is that you are not allowing men to teach boys. And we keep talking about absent fathers. Yeah, there's absent fathers because we can't even be in the house. And you think I'm kidding, but you want to teach your kid how to arm wrestle? You want to teach your kid how to box? You want to teach him how to wrestle? You better make sure you married a woman that understands that that's okay, because otherwise the police might be at your house and you might be headed to your hometown with nothing but what you can stick in a bag. So that's if you're lucky. So we're like talking about a dominant force in our culture that men have zero influence on and can cost us our career and the one thing that gives our lives meaning, a family to provide for. You take that away from us when we're wired for service and to protect. And then you don't allow the younger generation of men to simply learn. I totally and 100% have no problem with people for making weird choices to be freaks. There's some ways that I'm freaky myself. Ain't the same as other people. And I get that. I don't think anybody's condemned for what they choose to do for themselves. And I don't think you're encouraging other people to do something if you're in an appropriate area, you're in an appropriate place, and there aren't children present. Absolutely. But that's just my belief. And that I'm fine if other people have other things that they don't want going on around them. They can have a space for that. And I shouldn't be allowed to invade it, tell them what I can do there. It's their property. Okay? If I don't want to bake your damn cake, get the hell out of my private business. If you have a problem with that, the system is of no avail to me. You can harass me for years, for decades, finding excuses and costing me more money than I can spend to run a business. All right, folks, well, I can go on, but I just wanted to bring up this fact that your football players, they don't expect to get a concussion. They make millions of dollars and they'll sue, and the NFL's afraid. Wow.